back with our next episode of Hannah's Garage Finds. I let her loose on the pegboard and in the boxes to pick out a new category of lures and to kind of give her some backstory as to what they're all about. Hannah, what did you choose today?
Today is Topwater.
Why Topwaters?
Because it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
It really is. I love a topwater bite, whether it's fishing for peacock bass or tuna or largemouths. It is, like she said, the most fun you can have with your clothes on. So I asked her to pick out a few, and let's go through them. We'll see what they're all about. What's the first one?
The first one here is a Zara Spook. It's, again, old, in the package, so I wanted to know about it.
What's the first thing you notice on the package?
Mr. Zell Rowland.
Zell Rowland on it. And when you think of Zell Rowland, you're a student of the tournament game. What do you think of first?
The popper.
The popper, that's right. Zell was known, and a group of East Texas fishermen were known for reinvigorating the popper. Rebel was about to discontinue it, and the word got out when Zell won a bass tournament at Nickajack in Chickamauga in the 80s. But then later, Pradco came out with these pro autograph series, and they had guys come in and do their own special designs and customization to existing Pradco lures. They had Mark Davis and Larry Nixon and Kevin Van Dam, and they asked Zell to do a popper, but also to do a spook. And a couple things you might notice about this spook. 1, 2, 3. The original spooks, most of them had 2 hooks, and Zell was customizing them by putting a 3rd treble so you would get better hookups. He also had these paint jobs that were his own custom work. And this lure is special to me. I have this one in the package because they're collectible. I do have several in the boat at all times. I don't use them as much as I used to. But the first spook fish I ever caught, I remember, was November of 1997. I was fishing at one of our local lakes. And one of the best fishermen in my club, a guy named Jeff Benfield, came around and he asked me to take his picture. We didn't all have phone cameras back then. And he pulled out a bass that was close to 8 pounds. And so I took his picture, and then I wanted to say, Jeff, what'd you catch it on? But I noticed he only had one rod on the deck and it had a spook on it. So I literally laughed at him, tied on a spook, hadn't caught a fish on a spook at that point, went around the corner and caught my first spook fish, which is around 2 pounds. And later that day caught one that was almost 7 pounds on this exact model of pro autograph spook. So these will always have a special place in my heart. That was my biggest Virginia bass at that point. So let's move on. What's another topwater you have here?
It's called a front runner. It's very odd looking.
Why did it stand out to you?
Because it's got a funny looking head on it and a feather in the back, but nothing else.
The front runner, like the name suggests, is meant to be fished in front of another topwater. Now, you don't hear about that in tournament situations now because you can't fish a lure like an Alabama rig or a double fluke rig. You can only have a single lure. But this was invented by a guy named Doyle Hodgins in North Carolina, who was sort of historian and tinkerer of the sport. And Norman eventually took it over from him, and you tie it in front of a popper or a spook or something like that, and you can sometimes either get a bite just on that one, or you can catch 2 at the same time. It's something we really should be throwing at El Salto when they're schooling, and we should probably be throwing it around here when they're chasing shad as well. So I'm glad you reminded me. Norman no longer makes these, but several other companies, including some small local manufacturers, make similar items. So what's your third choice?
My third choice, well, we've fished these before with, it looks like topwater with a propeller on the top, but then I saw something that looked exactly like it with his mouth cut out. So I thought, ooh, there's got to be a story behind that.
There is, of course, there's a story behind everything. These twin propeller baits that look like brim, these were a big deal in the Carolinas during the brim spawn. Panfish usually spawn after the bass, and you'll see them. It looks like little moon craters on the bottom of the lake, and the bass will patrol those areas waiting for an easy meal. So these prop baits that go bloop, bloop, bloop seem like that easy meal. This is a really good one. This was made by our friend Phil Hunt, who we know through Bill Lowen. And what he did was he took a pretty proven design, but he made it better. Not only are the paint jobs better, but a problem with a lot of the old balsa ones was after a couple fish, the tail of it would break off. So what he did was he put an aluminum tube through the middle. It doesn't impact the action at all, but it makes the lure more durable. But that's kind of only the start of the story. You picked up on this one. That's called the Squeaky Pea. This is called the Crazy Ace. And as you can see, it has a little divot torn out of its mouth. And that's actually how I met Phil. One day I called up his best friend, Bill Lowen, for a story about something. And Bill said, you should really write about pH lures and Phil Hunt. And he has this topwater that's unique. and it's called the Crazy Ace. And like you said, it has that little divot pulled out, which makes it a lot more erratic than this bait. This bait is an easy meal. That bait is more of an injured meal. And I wrote a story for Bassmaster Magazine about the Crazy Ace with Bill Lowen and with Phil. And Phil then went on to quit his job as an EMT and go full-time into the lure building business, and he's been extremely successful at it. So I like to think that I played a small role in it, and I like to think that topwater fishing is what got him there, even though he's really sort of a crankbait specialist. So you've gone through these topwaters, you've learned my little bit of craziness. What's the lesson we get out of this?
The lesson is, it's good to be on top.
Thanks, guys. Stay tuned for another Garage Finds. I'm having fun with Hannah going through these. Let us know. Drop a comment if you want to see a particular category of lures. Obviously, we have a whole bunch of different things, but until then, we'll let Hannah make the choices. Stay tuned.